All right, we are back with Power Five picks brought to you by Better in Green. It is August. We are, as of right now, 19 days away from college football week zero. Week zero obviously is not the best, but we do have games starting August 24th, I believe. So I'm very excited to start talking some football. Me and Ethan were just talking about the dog days of summer, and I cannot wait. Ethan, very excited to start talking football with you as well. We're going to go through the Big Ten preview today. So everything you needed to know about Big Ten future bettings, Big Ten win totals, teams to look for, teams to fade. And it is both of our teams. If you can see from Ethan's background, not a whole lot of Michigan State up there, but he does have his Michigan State hat on. I am a Michigan fan, so Big Ten is our conference. And again, the conference realignments, the new teams, very excited moving forward. But yeah, Ethan, glad to have you here. How you been? How's your summer? And are you excited for football?
Yeah, I am pumped to be back. We're going to be getting into football basically full time at this point, all the way through really the Super Bowl. So, yeah, we have a long road ahead, but I love it every single year. So I'm looking forward to it. Summer was great. Like you kind of mentioned, took quite a bit of time off. I haven't had a free weekend since mid June, I don't think. But yeah, August is kind of where summer turns into fall. I still technically count it as summer, but we're getting real close to those fall days, the fall Saturdays, football. Yeah, I absolutely cannot wait. Already have one preseason NFL game under our belt. As you mentioned, 24th will be the first official college football weekend. And yeah, really looking forward to college football this year, especially with, like you mentioned, all the realignments that have happened.
Quickly, four new teams in the Big Ten. We have introduced USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. So, reminder the Big Ten was the Big Ten, then the Big 12, then the Big 14. Now there are the Big 18. Unfortunately, that doesn't have the same ring to it as the Big Ten. But four new teams. The Pac 12 is completely dissolved. I'm not exactly sure what Oregon State and Washington State are up to. Do they join? Do they join anything?
I think it's just the Pac 2.
Those two and Notre Dame are out doing their own thing. But yeah, so just remember those four teams are new to the Big Ten this year. Also, 12-team playoff. Remember that. We probably won't have a whole lot of national championship and playoff bets in this episode, but in the future, remember 12-team playoffs, not a 4-team playoffs. A lot's changing this year. Again, I trying to hold back my excitement. But yeah, let's quickly get into it. I'm just going to go over the quick odds. These are taken via DraftKings. I know FanDuel and other sports books might have some different odds, so these odds might be a little different. But on DraftKings, about 20 minutes ago, Ohio State is the favorite to win the Big Ten at plus 155. Oregon is right behind them at plus 200. Then we kind of drop a little bit to have Penn State at plus 500, Michigan plus 700, and then a massive drop. So there's really four teams. Then a massive drop plus 2,200 USC, Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Washington, Maryland, Rutgers, UCLA, Minnesota, Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue. Again, these odds are kind of going to vary, but four main contenders according to the odds. Again, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan. As a Michigan fan, I'll quickly touch on the futures of to win the Big Ten quickly. As a Michigan fan, I'm actually feeling pretty good. We have one big question mark, and that is quarterback. Obviously, the quarterback is the most important position in football. But Michigan, I think, will have the best, if not the second best, defense once again in the country. Their offense, again, they have Donovan Edwards. Their wide receiver core is great, best tight end in the country. O line is going to be young, and then the quarterback. But as a Michigan fan, I like that plus 700. I'm not going to give it out because that's going to be a homer bet. But I think those odds are a little too good. I honestly think Michigan is still better than Penn State. Oregon is a big question mark. And then we all know Ohio State's Ohio State. But quickly to you, Ethan, just a quick touch on these Big Ten odds. Is there anything that's like really standing out to you or anything you want to quickly touch on before we move on?
Yeah, I'll just talk about the top four here quick. Not a market I'm super interested in betting, but I think you would have to probably lay the chalk with Ohio State here. I'm looking to fade the Pac-12 newcomers, so I would not go with Oregon, even though they are going to be a good team. But I really think the Big Ten is going to punch the Pac-12 in the mouth, and they're not really going to know what hit them until midway through the second quarter. It's just a different, tougher, um, I guess more white collar style of football than I think what they're used to. So I would not really touch Oregon or any of the others, USC. Um, I really don't like USC, but would not touch them. I think your value is going to be on Penn State, to be honest. I'm not super high on Michigan. Think they're going to finish about where the bookmakers have them. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you know me, I kind of like to fade the champion the next year around. Look for any way to fade them when they're high. So obviously, a ton of change has happened to Michigan's team with Harbaugh gone, McCarthy gone, Corum gone. Um, a ton of players, offense and defense gone. So just a lot of turnover there. But yeah, I think, I'd probably get chalky and bet Ohio State, maybe sprinkle Penn State would be my value play, but probably a market that I will get myself involved in.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the Pac-12 newcomers. Newcomers. The one thing I will say, I completely agree. UCLA is going to be terrible. Washington's going to be terrible without their head coach and Penix. And then USC is going to be terrible. Again, maybe we'll have a decent offense. I believe their quarterback is Moss. Don't know a whole lot about this guy. They do still have Zachariah Branch, their little wide receiver, running back, kick returner, who I do think is the most explosive player in the Big Ten. He will be a true sophomore, Zachariah Branch. Remember the name. But they have no defense, and I'm not worried at all about USC. Oregon last year, the one thing that they did have, they actually played defense, which I know is crazy saying that the Pac-12 played defense because that's a conference that just doesn't believe in it. But Oregon did have one of the better defenses, so I do think, and the odds are showing that, and their roster is showing that they can compete in the Big Ten. I do think they're going to experience a little bit of a welcome to the Big Ten moment, but I do think they will adjust relatively quickly to the Big Ten style of play. I'm glad also you touched on Penn State. Penn State at plus 500 really is not that bad of a bet either. If I were to bet not against Michigan, I am going to throw, again, I'm not going to give it out, but I am betting on Michigan to win the Big Ten once again. I can't pass up on plus 700. But I do, my second best bet would be that Penn State at plus 500 again on DraftKings. Penn State getting into the schedules and the win total. Penn State has the easiest schedule in the Big Ten, hands down. Easiest schedule, hands down in the Big Ten. They have 3 tough games. They are at USC, which you can maybe chalk that one up as an easy win. They are at Wisconsin, which is always a very tough place to play on the road. Again, Wisconsin's not a great team, but it's really tough to play at Madison. And then their big game versus at home against Ohio State. That's their only big game. They also do play Washington at home. Again, not too worried about those games. But they really, in my mind, have 2 tough games if you want to even narrow it down closer, at Wisconsin and home versus Ohio State. Their win total set at 10.5. I think they're going to win that game at home against Ohio State. And if they do that, I think they would walk away with, first of all, over 11 or 10.5 wins. And I think they could walk away with the Big Ten title. Obviously, that's a tough task, but that's the only thing in my mind standing in Penn State's way is a home game, which are always close against Ohio State. Only game standing in Penn State's way of a Big Ten championship.
Yeah, to be honest with you, haven't looked too deep into Penn State this year. This is obviously we're filming today, so did my research on some teams, but typically not a huge college future better. So might have to dive into Penn State a little more. I like what you said there. I do think, yeah, that 10.5, especially I think it was plus 145. I saw that. It's intriguing. So can't really give much on Penn State right now, other than I do like that plus 500 as the value play to win the Big Ten. But yeah, something I'll have to look deeper into. Teams I'm really looking to touch on for the futures: USC, Michigan State, Michigan, Nebraska, and Ohio State.
I love Michigan State, and I am a very big Michigan fan. I wish for Michigan State's downfall more often than I wish for their success. Michigan State has a really, really winnable schedule. Their win line, their win total currently, I believe, is 5, and I think that's a minus something on DraftKings. But they do have I'm just going to run through Michigan State's schedule real quick. They're home versus Florida Atlantic. That's a win. At Maryland, who knows? I'm not going to chalk it up. Home versus Prairie View. That's a win. At Boston College, winnable game, but I won't count it yet. So they got 2 wins. Home versus Indiana. That's a win. at Illinois. Illinois is garbage. I think Michigan State's going to be able to win that one. That's 4. Home versus Purdue, that's a win. Home versus Rutgers, that's a win. You already got 6, and I think they could beat Boston College. Think they can beat Maryland. Again, new coach, new system, new everything for Michigan State, but they're always a very tough team. And a majority of these games, I think Michigan State's going to be the favorite. So I do like their win total at 5. It is pretty low. Again, you're probably not going to get the greatest line there. But I am pretty high on Michigan State this year. Not to do anything crazy, but I do think they're going to get above their win total. The one thing I will say, lowest odds according to DraftKings was Purdue, as well as the lowest win totals was Purdue. So I haven't looked into Purdue much, but something is happening in Purdue, and it's not good. So if you do want a team to fade, probably throw in Purdue. They are, again, worst team in regards to odds and total wins. I will be fading the F out of UCLA. I think UCLA is a must bet against team. I think they're going to get absolutely rolled in the Big Ten. I don't think they stand a chance at all. I think they're the weakest. They are the weakest Pac-12 team. So I think they're going to get absolutely rolled. Their win total is also like Michigan State's at 5. I think they're going to have 2-3 wins this year. I'm going to sound crazy here. I kind of like tailing Rutgers. I think Rutgers is going to figure it out. They're going in the right path. Despite their coach being a PUSSY and saying Michigan was cheating. Michigan wasn't cheating on Rutgers. They didn't care about. But Rutgers is going in the right direction. Their win total is at 6. I like Rutgers quite a bit. And then quickly, teams that I am fading heavily: Purdue, UCLA, Nebraska. If anyone gives you another comparison, that Raiola for Nebraska, their quarterback, is comparable to Patty Mahomes, punch that person in the face. Nebraska's garbage. They will always be garbage. Fading the hell out of Nebraska.
All right, yeah, I'll just kind of run through some of the futures I'm looking at, which are win totals mostly. I'll actually start with Nebraska. I like the over 7.5 on Nebraska. Not as much Raiola. I do think I'm not going to compare him to Mahomes, but I think he'll play well. What I really like here is Matt Rule, year 2. Obviously had great success at Baylor before he went to the NFL and was horrible, like we see so many college coaches do. But yeah, I mean, their schedule is easy. I kind of like the over 7.5. Actually, I kind of like a sprinkle on them to make the playoff at plus 950.
Wow.
And that's, Ohio State's going to get in. I think Penn State or Oregon is going to get in. And the other one, I mean, probably is better than Nebraska, but I think at plus 950, I mean, I think there's a chance. I really do like Matt Rule. I think they're going to be a little bit slept on. They're favored in their first 5 or 6 games in the year. Yeah, I could kind of see Nebraska being that decent team in the Big Ten, kind of a sleeper. I'll touch on Michigan State. I like this one way more than Nebraska. Just with you, I love the over 5. I think I kind of like the over 3.5 home wins a little bit more. That is minus 145, so a little bit of juice. But you mentioned FAU and Prairie View. That should be 2-0 right off the bat. Ohio State obviously is going to be a loss, but then they have Iowa, who might overlook Michigan State. Then you have Indiana, Purdue, and Rutgers. Those last 3 are also 3 in the last 4 weeks of the season. I think Michigan State at that point in the year is going to have more to play for than those 3 teams will, just based on MSU's history. They're not used to being a bottom feeder like the other 3 kind of are. So I think they'll have more to play for late in the year. I don't think they're going to tank it in maybe as much as Purdue might or Rutgers might or Indiana might. So I do like the over 3.5 for Michigan State home wins. We'll go quick to USC. Talked about fading Pac-12 teams. Under 7 would be a lean. That's plus 120. Really like under 4.5 home wins for them. That is minus 195 though, so that is quite a bit of juice. But their home games are Utah State, Wisconsin. I think punches them in the mouth. They might lose that one. Penn State, I think they're definitely going to lose. Rutgers, Nebraska, I think they could lose, and then Notre Dame. So you really just need them to lose, I believe, 3 of those games, 2 of those games. So Notre Dame and Penn State, I mean, that's 2 likely losses for them, but I think Nebraska could give them hell. I think Wisconsin could as well. So really like that. Again, minus 195, not great. Also an advantage for USC is their last 5 games are all West Coast games. Their last time out east is October 19. So they don't have to play out in the cold. over in, Michigan State, Wisconsin, any of that late into the year. So that is a bit of an advantage and why I'm not super sold on that, but I would look to fade USC. Michigan, I think their win total is set right where it should be, 9. I would actually be curious to sprinkle exact wins to be 9 at plus 275. I think that's a better bet than betting over or under. I know a lot of sharp money has come for the under 9 for Michigan. The one I would look at is under 6.5 home wins, minus 175. Again, a lot of juice, but that's asking them not to go undefeated at home, which they might lose right off the bat, basically against Texas. They're, I believe, a dog in that game. They might lose it there. If they don't lose to Texas, they do have Oregon later on down the road. They have MSU at home, which obviously is not tough, but they always play each other tough. Well, no, they don't. But Michigan State always takes that game a little more seriously than Michigan does. So you never know. They could get caught there. I think Michigan slips up at least once at home. And then lastly, not much here, just a sprinkle. I think you could take a stab at Ohio State under 7.5 home wins plus 300. That's only asking them to lose one game at home. They're going to sweep their first 3, Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. After that, they do have Iowa is their next home game, but that is before a road game against Oregon. Could be a bit of a look-ahead spot. And then after the Oregon game, which is on the road, they have to come back home to play Nebraska, which I already mentioned, kind of like Nebraska. And they have a look ahead after that at Penn State. That time is not determined. I wouldn't be shocked if that's a whiteout game at Penn State. It's going to be a nice sandwich spot there. So I'll almost certainly take Nebraska plus the points in that spot, but they could lose outright. And then other than that, they do have Michigan to end their season at home. So, not a big play. It is plus 300 for a reason. Obviously, they're the top dog in the Big Ten, but I think they have a couple opportunities where they could slip up. So I kind of like a sprinkle on that.
Yeah. Thank you for keeping yours much more organized than my ramblings. That's going to be a pain in the butt for me to edit that out to make me sound like I am not supposed to be in a psych ward. But yeah, so right off the bat, me and you, a little bit of differences in Nebraska, Colorado. We will be getting into each of the power. We might need to change our name. It's no longer Power 5. But we will be getting into each major conference's previews. Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoy this. Hopefully in the upcoming episodes, I can keep this a little bit more on track and not so random. But again, I'm excited just to be talking football. So apology for the ramblings. Ethan, thank you for joining me. And I'm looking forward to getting into the next conference.
Yep. See you guys next time.
You better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome to Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover old spot from the bottom to the top, hey. Shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome to our podcast, Better in Green.